When you think about water ski racing world championships, one name almost always comes to the front of mind. The reason for this is he is considered one of, if not the greatest of all time. With 3 world championships to his name and throw in 2 world wakeboarding championships, Wayne Mawer casts an impressive reputation over the ski racing community. Our very own world champion Chelsea Stevens caught up with Wayne over a Zoom meeting at his home in North Queensland, where she got the lowdown on his amazing career. It's such a great story that even Wayne's daughter's budgies got in on the act, so please sit back and enjoy the story of one of the greatest ski racers of all time, Wayne Mawer.
To kick off, Wayne, we are privileged to have an athlete like you on the rope. We are so happy, and I'm pretty stoked to be the person that's doing the interview because I can finally say that I've been on the rope with Wayne. So to me, it feels like I'm having a chance to actually get behind the boat with you and learn about everything that you've done in your journey, which is really, really cool. But I guess to start off, what I want to do is, and I know that every one of us in water ski racing go through this. I want you to share with the listeners, what do you think water ski racing and wakeboarding is? Like, how would you describe both the sports to someone who's potentially never really heard of them? Like, I know especially water ski racing, some people are like, what is that sport? How does it work? And if they haven't had the privilege to watch us in action, how would you explain that to the listener?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think I do explain all the ways I have explained it over the time, I guess. I say it's like a motorbike race or a cycling race. You know, I said it's like ready, set, go. You start at one point and you'll do laps in some cases. And you go round and round and round until it's finished. And or if it's, you know, I said, well, sometimes we go in the ocean, so it's more like a motocross race where you're ready, set, go, and you go round and round and round until it's done. And sometimes you go from point A to point B, or sometimes it's a course.
That's a great description.
Yeah, it's for the people who really have no idea. And
I love that way. So you're sort of comparing sort of like super bikes and motocross in regards to river racing and ocean type conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's very good. I might steal that one.
It just makes, it's the only thing I can sort of, not that I've ridden motocross, and I've never ridden super bikes or anything, but it's, I don't know, just as a visual, it's kind of the closest thing that I can picture that someone will understand.
Yeah, definitely. And it does make sense what you're saying, a good description of the different types of conditions us as water skiers can face. We can face something like super bikes, or we can face stuff like what they're doing in motocross. So it is a really good description. So let's get on to you. I'm so excited. I really am excited. And I guess I want to start off as what did the youngster Wayne do? Like, what was your craziest dreams as a kid? I watched your little Sonny on social media and just blows my mind how that child's already kicking goals like he is. And I'd love to know what you were like when you were sort of a youngster, and what were your craziest dreams back then?
I do know that I was full on. It's due, yeah. As you have a child, and then my mum says, "You were just like that." And you go, "All right, okay, well, this is what it means." So yeah, a bit of understanding there. I guess it was just I grew up in a family with my dad, and he was always doing something. Like whenever we'd go, you've been to Cairns, you sort of know the landscape of Cairns, so we either can go fishing at the reefs and spearing and all that kind of stuff, or we can go skiing in the lakes. So even on a day where we'd go spearing, no one didn't get to ski. So you'd always hook 2 ropes on, and it would be a freeboard, fence bowling, or a race ski, depending on how rough it was. And it would just go. So that pretty much, whether we skied, whether we did that, I really can't remember too many weekends of my childhood that weren't filled with something like that.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about Cairns, isn't it? Like, you've got the weather and you've got the environment up there that you literally all year round can just do cool
12
things.
months of the year, yep.
12 months of the year doing cool things. And when you've got parents that give you that opportunity, that's pretty special as well.
Yeah. Well, definitely my dad was, incredible skier himself. Started way late in his time, and for what he achieved in his long time, he was part of it. Growing up around that, and he was all about just getting out and doing it, lifestyle, and that's kind of it, which opened up my opportunities, really.
Pretty much given the opportunity to live the dream.
Yep, from a very young age.
And your dad, thankfully I've had a few dealings with him, and he's a very funny man too, so it would have been all about the jokes and laughter, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially over a beer.
So how old were you when you got inspired? Like, how old when you got started, and who inspired you to sort of take that water sports route? I guess not only ski racing, but getting out on the water and doing anything water sports.
Well, yeah, I guess it was. So I started at a young age up North Queensland, as such, like Townsville, even Mackay. Back when I was a under 10 skier, it was big up here. Like, we would get 20 boats, 25 boats to the lake, or to an ocean race, and we used to have circuit racing in the ocean back then. It thrived back when I was coming through, and I got to see so many good skiers. And I mean, there's the big name ones like Mark Pickering, Eva and Carla Ryan. Like, them guys actually went on and did worlds from such a small area back, in 85. Mark Pico won his world title, and Eva and Carla were in that same world championships. And they're two lady skiers that are from Tully, which is like an hour and a half south of Cairns. So when you look back and every spot has a bit of history to it, that history means a lot to me, because that's what I grew up seeing. It was, these people were like we're kind of from the other end of the world.
Yeah.
and I didn't know, like, when you're under 10s, under 13, I hadn't started going away then. So also I knew these guys were winning. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to local comps, and you just knew that those guys were going somewhere and doing good things.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's where it kind of started for me. That's my memories of it anyway.
And that's what sort of triggered you to ask questions about what was out there. What was the bigger picture?
Yeah, and at the time, Dad, he was going away as well. Like, he would go down to the Australian titles here, or the Queensland titles and stuff like that. And it was when I got to about 9, under 10 boys, and I was about 9, I think I went to my first Queensland titles in Brisbane, and I used to go to the Gold Coast Classics. They were my two main things I used to do when I started becoming competitive in the sport, really.
Yeah.
I remember the Gold Coast Classic being my favourite race to date. I wish it still ran. It was an amazing race.
How cool was it? I was privileged to ski the Gold Coast Classic myself in 1996, and how mind-blowing it was to be able to race.
It was crazy.
Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And cool for you too, because it was one of, not only one of the best races on the calendar back then, but in your home state as well. Although it was still a fair drive, it was at least in Queensland for you.
Yeah, it was the shortest one we could go to.
Oh, hats off to you guys in Cairns, I tell you. You definitely make the journey down a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah,
so that's a good little insight into your childhood. But what really, how did it get kicked off into sort of that world class level, like your first world championships? From memory, was that 1997, and you as a youngster, you went
1997.
Straight into open men's,
Yeah, I got thrown in the deep end. I had no idea where it started. So as I come up through under 16, under 10 boys, under 13 boys, the sport in Cairns kept growing. So there become a lot more faster boats. Like, Gotta Be Crazy was born. Legless was born. Full Bore was born. Just As Honest, Tad Davies was always around. Jesus, who am I forgetting? There's Full Bore. And then this is before Cyclone Boats was around. Juggernaut, Anthony Capitanio, a very good friend of mine up here, has always had boats and always taken me away as a youngster. Peter Sharp, Ray Hall. There's a lot of people, and in about 97, so it would have been about 95, I think. Cyclone Boats was born, and their first campaign was with Mark Pickering, and they took him to Belgium. And so it started becoming, and I started becoming of age where I was actually competing with these guys now. So I guess it was born in that sense. I started developing into someone, or something where I could go further with it. And as we got through it and years went by, I got, I guess, opportunities with Legless and Ray Hall and Peter Sharp, and it was probably 2 years before the 97 Worlds. We went down and did a few selection races, and I think that's when Scott Kell was leading the charge down there for, I think it was France that year. Anyway, so, yeah, and we were racing against, I went down as a 15-year-old, maybe a 16-year-old, and had a crack, and we actually placed in a few of them, not knowing or not going for the Worlds, but then we sort of, that got everything ticking, really. We went down and saw where we stood, and we actually thought, oh, well, maybe we got a shot if we do this properly.
So you sort of went down in 95 selections, you had a bit of a crack, you actually went all right, and then a few people went, hang on a minute, this kid's got talent, let's give him a go.
Yeah. And then, went back, and a year later the Cyclone team was born, and we'd come down fresh, in 96 to get ready for the 1997 Worlds, I guess.
So the Cyclone team was born out of Cairns, and pretty much with the long-term thought, or the sort of short-term, I guess, born in 1996 to tow you in 1997 to an open men's world title at the age of, 17, 18?
Yeah, well, no, I was 20 at that time, so sorry that I got, it was about 20, so I was got my years mixed up. It's a long time ago.
Yes, it sure is. Still pretty amazing as a 20-year-old open men's.
Yeah.
It's like you're in open men's, you're not doing F2, you're not progressing, you're straight to the top of the field.
Yeah, and I still remember the meeting that we had. So it was 2 years prior to that, 97. So that I might have the years mixed up of when actually we went down there, because I know I was only about 16, 17. So it might have been 4 years before that. That's probably more the timeline, Josh. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Because I remember going down, and Vichy might have been before that. Anyway, whatever that year was, I know it was 2 years later where we had a meeting at Dad's place, my dad's place, and everyone involved, Louis Grosso and Gavin Mackay and Ross Wilson, everyone come around, and basically we all sat down and they said, well, this is what we'd like to do. This is where we want to go. Would you be interested? I guess that's when it was born.
Wow. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's funny, a few people I've spoken to about Worlds, everyone seems to have that sit-down meeting and who's serious, what are we doing and how are we going to do it. So I guess that's the start of the planning, isn't it? I mean, the plan, you sit down with your team and plan out what you're going to do.
I don't know if you're interested, I guess. And at that stage, we didn't, the boats, so the first Cyclone boat was put into play, and that got modified over the few years to become what we ski behind, which was an amazing couple of boats that we had to take to the campaign.
Very, very cool to hear how that all kicked off. But I mean, looking back now, you're 20 years old. You sort of spoke about the fact it was only sort of 2 to 4 years prior where you just toe in the water about coming and travelling down south and checking out what was going on in the big wide world of water ski racing around Australia. I guess how'd you handle the pressure of your first ever world title? I mean, you're going into this, you're 20 years old, you're a Cairns boy, you've shown your talent, but how did you personally handle all of that? You've had a team that's approached you, that's built all the boats and spent all the money, and how'd you get your head around all of that?
I really believe that being so far away from it had a lot to do with it. Had a lot to do with my, maybe call it naiveness, of the pressure of what the pressure could be like. And when we went down for the first few times, it was really exciting, and the team was really exciting. We were all very close because we all sort of lived just across the road from each other, basically. Did spend a lot of time on the water, so confidence of our team was high, like very high, and we just knew that we got a good shot at this if we could put it together. And we did so much skiing, and being a little naive to the whole situation of that, I think we just went in ready, like really ready. So the pressure didn't build too bad for me. I mean, always got nervous and stuff like that, but I was chasing that hard. I was chasing and training that hard that I was just confident. I just knew that I could do this.
So I guess what I take from that is, I guess, that you were a bit sheltered up in Cairns. You're away from the politics. You're away from the hype, and you surrounded yourself with the right people, and you knew that you were doing what it took to make it happen.
100%. Yeah, that's and not hearing the hype and not being around, listening to what people presumed or had to say, or it just never got to me. So I never entered that side of the ski realm for many years. Actually, it was just, we just led a very simple, we just all like to ski. There was a few questions, and I was always nervous about, am I doing enough, because we're so far away from it. But every time we went to race, and we did a lot of racing over them 2 years down there, and in 2 years I don't think we lost a race. So on the selection side of things, so obviously that's the only judge we needed, if you know what I mean. So we didn't really care what anyone said. We were winning at the time, and
that's all you needed.
That's all we needed, yeah. And I knew that even when we did win, I was like, oh man, did we do that like because we earned it, or did we do that because they broke down? There was always the little devils in my head.
Yeah, you always wanted to work harder.
Yeah, always. And I get back on there, I'm like, oh, it might be that easy next time, which just put me in a good spot for next time. And really didn't take my foot off the accelerator for many years, like for 2 years, until, even the last race at the Worlds. I can remember having a conversation with the guys on the boat. I said, I want to win this. I don't want to slow down. I don't want to take my mind off the job. So don't take my calls. Don't baby me. And I remember having that conversation. So, yeah, as long as you kept your head in the game, I think that was it for me.
Yeah, and definitely makes sense. One thing I take from what you've just said is you never really disregarded your competitors. You always knew they were chasing you down, and you knew that you had to continue to excel so they didn't catch up in a way.
Yeah, I really didn't relax at all.
Yeah. So, you went through that the 1997 World Championships. You were crowned the Open Men's World Champion, and it was pretty cool, actually. Jack got the footage up on the telly from the other night watching you take that world title, and oh my gosh, you look like a tiny little kid back then, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've grown up now.
Yeah, so that's pretty special. But it wasn't long after that, Wayne, and you decided to change sports for a little bit there, and something triggered you, obviously, to move across and have a crack at wakeboarding, and you took on the wakeboarding world pretty similar to the way you took on the water skiing world. I'd love to know what triggered you to make that move, and I guess what did wakeboarding offer you at the time that water ski racing didn't?
Yeah, well, it was so when you was training flat out, keeping everything fresh and new, and I guess one of the big things for me when I was doing it, on the Sundays I'd always have a day where I would ski, but it would be like socially. It would be not going out for an hour and flogging my body. It was just chill, relax, and as long as I was skiing, I felt good. I didn't feel like I was wasting time or anything. And it was at that stage I'd sort of picked up a wakeboard and started just dicking around, I guess, and I heard about it, and I started looking up and watching these videos that come along with the wakeboarding. Had a few people there. So after the Worlds were finished, I sort of continued that. So in so 97. So by the mid-year of 1998, they started having a few competitions, or there was a few competitions down on the Gold Coast. So I thought, well, I'll try my hand, see, because I was doing all these tricks and I was doing a bit like ski racing, but I had no idea what anyone was doing. Because once again, we were a long way from anywhere. And went down there and put my name down in the competition, and it was just a small series day. I think there might have been, 13 or 14 people there, and ended up winning it. So I was like, it was pretty good. And then I got a check for like $500.
Wow.
I was like, oh boy, look at that. Like, as you know, ski racing, it's not a professional sport by any means, and it's quite an expensive sport. So, and for everyone, especially boat crews and boat owners, and what they have to do. But then, even with us training, Chelsea, how it can be costly, because it's your time that you can't. It's your time you got to give here. You need to keep giving that time, so you don't get a chance to. Well, you can. You just got to work extra harder to make that money.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess even putting petrol in the training boat, even those small things, they add up very, very quickly.
Very quickly. And so I guess, that come along, and then out of that, there was, I got a phone call from a few board companies, like pretty much straight away, that said, oh, look, you're looking for any sponsors and stuff. And and it was kind of born out of pure curiosity, I guess, if you could say that. I loved it, and I always see these guys, and they said they're full time, and I was like, holy shit, that would be awesome. I could do something that could be a job. It was like, yep, if that can be, I'd love to do that. So curiosity got me, and I sort of was, I guess, brave enough to throw my hat in the ring and say, stuff it, I've got nothing to lose. And it went on from there.
So I guess it was nothing really that in a sports perspective. It was more you're having a crack, you thought, oh, let's have a go at this, and then you realised that.
I mean, I enjoyed doing it like as a sort of cross training or just a bit of a fun day. When I really enjoyed it, it was like, and then realised, and when I learnt about the sport, how it was actually a professional sport and you could actually earn money and be paid for it, and that pricked the curiosity as well, because my thought back in the way was like, well, why wouldn't I want to do something and actually get paid for it and still able to do this kind of sport? It was like, okay, well, and that kind of led the curiosity, and well, if this can happen, I'll see how we go, and and that was pretty much where it started.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you're a very, very humble athlete, so you're not going to like me saying this, but you are absolutely the ultimate water ski sports athlete, and you actually went on to win a Wakeboarding World Championship as well. It was kind of surreal, I guess. So there was the way the wakeboarding world went after, I think, in 2000 or 1999 to 2000, I spent my first summer in America. At that stage where I had enough sponsorships and stuff that I could actually go there, so I went across there and had a pretty shit season. I remember the first season, and I come back home and worked hard and did the Australian tours and Australian comps and stuff, and started learning about the sport, and very different to ski racing, very different mentality to ski racing. It was, I had to learn all that again. I was the determination that every athlete carries, I guess, was a good thing. I had that, and it wasn't the confidence I had in ski racing. I had it in wakeboarding, but I had to come back a notch and learn again. I had a lot to learn. But as for learning and
putting my mark on the sport. Yeah, it was actually very scary, and had to put a lot on the line, I guess. When my first wakeboard world titles come around, I had it was an IWSF World Wakeboard Championships. There was World Wakeboarding Association, which is called the WWA, and then in that year or the year before, in 1999, actually was the first year, the IWSF put a World Wakeboard body together and held their first wakeboard world titles in France, where I actually got second there. And then in 2001, I went back to South Africa in Sun City, it's called, in South Africa, which was like a gated community which had a massive lake, and they set up the IWSF set up a world wakeboard comp over there, and and ended up winning it at that one. So, which was a pretty cool feeling.
Oh, so special. And I mean, I know you're very humble, but for the listeners out there, we've just heard Wayne Mawer talk about winning a water ski racing world championship in 1997 to then go on and win a wakeboarding world championship in 2001. And as we know, there's only a 4-year gap there, and you literally have gone away, taken up a recreational sport and turned yourself into a world champion in that short period of time. It's nothing short of impressive, Wayne, and I can't say anymore that you are the ultimate water sports athlete, and it's pretty cool to hear what you've got to say about all of that. And we jump forward, and we jump forward only 5 years, so we go from 2004 to 2009, and we have you back. We're all excited because we've got Wayne back in the sport he belongs in water ski racing. Probably missed the adrenaline, but I'm sure you'll fill us in. And
well, there was actually another World Wakeboarding Championship before then.
Oh, wow. So what was that one?
So that was a WWA. There was a bit of there was a fair bit of politics with the IWSF, how they come into the sport. They threw a lot of money at the sport, and the WWA wanted to boycott it, and there was just a lot of shit with it. So in their first World Championships, a lot of the good wakeboarders didn't turn up, basically in France, but that soon changed, and everyone started coming. And as politics, everyone tried to play politics, but it didn't quite work out for them. So IWSF did put together some good competitions as such. But then in 2005, so between 2001 and 2005, I had 2 ACL replacement operations.
Wow.
And in 2005, I was wakeboarding again, and it was the first time, and in 2005 it was the first time that the WWA World Championships were held outside of America, and that was put on the Sunshine Coast. And then I got to compete there, but I that one wasn't the pro. That one wasn't in pro men's though, because I actually wasn't pro at that time. I had too many injuries, and I had to retire and go back to work and just do it part-time again. So I entered that one as in the open men's category. Hence, I wasn't actually allowed to go pro men's because I wasn't pro. And ended up winning that one in 2005. So it was kind of like, I guess, I put it towards, it was kind of like an F2 World Championship.
Yeah.
For non-wakeboarders, if no one knows the politics. So, yeah. But that was still pretty cool.
In my mind, even when you refer back to water ski racing, winning an F2 World Championships when you've struggled with 2 ACL replacements throughout that journey is just phenomenal. And the power of the mind, I think, is pretty cool when I listen to what you've got to say.
Yeah, so that was the journey of that one anyway.
That was your wakeboarding. So you've won a water ski racing world title. You've gone on and won 2 wakeboarding world championships across those different divisions, and you've missed the adrenaline. Is that what brought you back, or?
No. So by 2005, so still on the Sunshine Coast, and while I was on the Sunshine Coast, I was actually helping I was the editor for a wakeboarding magazine, so I used to do the editing for Boarder magazine as the editor for it. So I was doing that, and at that time I had met my beautiful wife. So that was in 2003 we met. So during that transition of my injury and stuff, I met Nat, and we were living on the Sunshine Coast, and we both lived in. Nat was a vet nurse on the Sunshine Coast, so we stayed there for a while. But in 2005, we did this world title, and in 2006, not long after, Nat got pregnant with Sunny. So that triggered, well, you know what, it might be time to go home. to the family and to where all our support base was. It's like, well, maybe we had a bit of talk about it, we ended up making that move from the Sunshine Coast because my wakeboarding was, you know, purely only winning in that world titles because it was at my hometown, and being Wakeboarding magazine, we were sort of helping run it and all that kind of thing as well. So I wasn't going to miss that opportunity. So I hadn't really been wakeboarding a lot then, and it was sort of, I was on the end of my career, you could say. So we moved back home and started up old habits. and it was still a bit of a ski scene up here, a ski racing scene, you know, and it sort of died away. There wasn't much of a ski racing scene at that stage. They had a lot of black races, so anyway, started going to a few of them, and then it was just one thing led to another. And I actually had a good friend from, well, all our good friends, because everyone knows everyone in ski racing. We did a few races, and in 2007, I had a phone call from Tom Lumley, Tom and Kim Lumley, and they said, why don't you come over, because we kept in contact with them guys a lot, and they said, why don't you come over and do the diamond race? I was like, well, I've only had like 2 black races in Cairns, I'm not really skiing again. He goes, well, just come over and do it. I was like, yeah, sure. And that's where it started.
Wow.
And it happened just in 2 years after that. It just so happened that the world titles were back in Belgium.
So you we can thank Kim Lumley and from across
Tom
the
and
other
Kim,
side of the world.
Yeah,
Gosh,
you can.
how crazy! All the way from the UK, and they got you back on the water. That's awesome. And I mean, not only did they get you back on the water, obviously it was in your blood a bit, because I know you then teamed up with one of the best teams in water ski racing with Mark Cranny and Team Hell, and you went on then to, like you said, to go back to Belgium and back to Europe and compete in the 2009 World Championships. And tell you what, Wayne, I was there on the banks of should I say, the concrete wall of the canal. It was some of the most impressive racing I have ever watched in my 26 years of being in water ski racing. It was just unbelievable.
It's a pretty daunting place to race, would you say? When you turn up there.
100%. It is something that there is nothing in Australia that can mimic what happens in those canals.
No.
You mentioned I popped up to Cairns just before I went over to do the diamond race, because I was told it was the conditions that was most like a canal. And
still far from it.
Still far from, but I mean, you just can't mimic that sort of thing, can you? And
no, you can't. You really can't.
And I meant, but you went over there, and I mean, some of us, a majority of us would say the unbeatable Wayne Moore's back on the scene, and he's going across there to take on the world again. And you had one of the best teams, ski racing's ever seen, and you were in one of the best races ski racing's ever seen against the man himself, Todd Hay. Fill us in a bit on that. I mean, I want to know a little bit. I know there was some chaos on course into the last race. I know there was so much that went on in those World Championships, and it'd be good to know, I guess, how you felt, what you took out of that sort of last lap of the race, and how it unfolded.
I'm probably the worst person to ask that question, because, man, I was just hanging on. I saw nothing in front of me. I do recall when I looked up at the time when it was happening. All I know is that Todd worked his way back past us. It was a close race, like the whole time. Like, we led, then they made their move, very typical. Todd, they make their move. 40 minutes. They'll push up on you, and that's what they did, and they succeeded. Like they were running up the inside of the course, and their boat was very well suited for the canals, which it did give. It definitely they were, to say that they had an advantage. I don't want to use that word because they worked hard for it, but they were able to put themselves in positions that I guess we weren't. Maybe I wasn't up. Maybe not being able to guard ourselves, or I should have gone a bit harder at the time, but they worked their way past us, and they got a little way ahead of us, and we fought back a little. And I guess all I remember is I could see Todd clearly. Is just it looked like our nose of our boat was up his ass basically, and we'd gone to the inside of the track again, and they were on the outside of the track, and this was maybe the second last lap, or I would say the second last lap, when they were probably a little bit more ahead of us than that. But by the last lap coming up that straight, we sort of, caution was out the window, and it was now or never kind of situation. And I remember looking up halfway up the straight, what felt like we were halfway up the straight, thinking, shit, I've got to go, because he's too far ahead. And I know we had a timeline, a buffer of, I think it was like 2 seconds that we had to be within to actually win the Worlds. And so we, and I remember calling up, and I remember feeling Cranny responded, and I was like, fuck, it's now or never. I can't, I so desperately wanted to call down. And then we got I looked up, and you know how that tower sits over, there's a big tower that sits over the finish line. I remember looking up, and I remember seeing Todd in my boat right there. Then all of a sudden, we're catching Todd, like, fuck, we're going to pass, but I didn't realise they were turning. And all I remember them turning, was I looked up and I saw Randy turning, and then all of a sudden, Cranny's just turned the wheel and just, almost, I guess, spun it out. All I saw was water go everywhere. It was like, shit, did we just hit Todd, or what just happened? And but all that happened to me, I sunk in the water. And Cranny sort of went tight, the boat went tight again and popped, and I missed. It was so rough in that middle of one turn, I didn't come out of the water. I think I got dragged through the water. So they come around and picked me up, and Randy and Todd, that was the finish line. That was supposed to be, they should have gone straight ahead, in my recollection. They should have gone straight to the finish.
That was the finishing lap, and they've gone to do another lap.
That was the finishing lap, and they've gone to do another lap. So we've turned, and anyway, so when they come back, Cranny come back around, picked me up, and dragged me across the line. So, and you know what, the rest was up. The rest was all fought in the chief judge's offices and shit like that, which even today, even having this conversation, makes me feel ill that it ended that way, just because I just know how much we put on the line.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sad for both yourself and Todd, because
at the end of the day,
you want a race, you want a race fair, you want the winner to win, and then when you've got two amazing athletes like the two of you, which were literally side by side, with the cheering of the crowd, and I remember being there, it was just absolutely amazing to watch. And I guess, how did after the race, I know, like, as a skier, I know what you're saying, it's outside our control. Sometimes you don't even know what happens because all you're probably thinking is what you're doing.
I really
how was
don't
it between
know.
you and Todd? Was it between you and Todd? Obviously, it was difficult at the start, but as competitive,
It was definitely difficult. Not there and then, because I never sort of saw Todd then. I never saw Todd. I didn't see him for another year after that, more. So all I remember that the presentations were late. They didn't call open men's because it was still being fought. As such, no one knew, and even Cranny and Damo, they didn't even get to that presentation either, because they spent all that time in delegation and fighting, not fighting, but giving their
Putting
word,
their point across,
putting their
correct.
point across and stuff, and it took them that long to make judgment of that, which was, it took. I mean, the team wasn't there. It was like, man, that just happened, and I know there was a lot of ill feeling between teams, and it was like, this is not why I race.
No.
So it was like, whoever wins this, whatever, it sort of, by that stage, I was like, and having that win, it was almost like, I really don't want to take this trophy to a point. But,
yeah, but I mean,
then you still worked hard, and we just, there would have been a winner or loser no matter what.
correct. That's right.
And you just, if that's what they say, well, okay, well, that's what they say. You just accept it for what it is. And some people call bullshit. Some people are like, okay, you know what, it's finished. But honestly, that's why I went back in 2013. That's the sole reason.
Yeah, and I mean, and that makes sense, Wayne. Unfortunately, there's no draw in sports like this.
No,
and although you two were very, very close, the closest to a draw I've ever seen, there has to be a winner. And unfortunately, whatever happens in that judge's office has got nothing to do with the two of you as athletes. You both listen. But you were crowned world champion after, like I said, a very, very long night. I know we're all at presentation, waiting anxiously for the final results. And it's interesting because I did wonder whether that's why you bounced back in 2013, but you just come out of your mouth. So you sort of moved on to 2013. You came back. And let's be honest, I was pretty privileged. I followed the Wayne journey the whole time. I was in Tenerife as well on a yacht, which was nice. Watching you ski around in that
good vantage point, that was beautiful.
Unbelievably beautiful. Yeah, beautiful.
It was one of the best ski racing venues. It was just beautiful. It was awesome.
But I watched you ski around. They were in huge swell, and Wayne, although you dominated, and I can use that word very confidently because I sat there and watched it myself as I sipped on a cocktail, I must say. But although you dominated, the week didn't come easy for you. I vividly remember watching your boat have issues throughout the racing, and you were actually physically stopping on course several times due to engine issues, but thankfully you get it going again. What was running through your mind? I was thinking as I sat and watched you go around, I'm like, what's Wayne thinking? He knows he's got to get up and do things twice as hard now because every time you stopped, your competitors were coming, including that of Todd Haig, and you just had extra work to do in every single race at those Worlds. And what was going through your mind? Like, how didn't you just give up? What's running through it?
By that stage, when we actually had 3 clean races. So the first race was a clean race, and we won. Todd actually broke down in that race, and Mark Weaver was, he had a good crack in that race, but then Mark hurt his back in them boils. He pulled muscle in his back, so it wasn't his time. And then Todd, we sort of raced, and by the first lap they stopped. Todd stopped on the first laps, on the first of that first Tenerife Worlds, in the first race, so they were out early. And so that race, we took a lead and sort of went to the front and thought, okay, well, we got good control here, so we utilised it and got 1,000 points, I guess. The next 2 races were pretty much the same. The second race, Todd was back. They got the boat going, and it was a little nervous because we hadn't put ourselves against that team yet, in the second race, and I thought, oh, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. And so when we went out, we put a really good race together. We were in full control the whole way, and won well. So and the third race, I thought, oh, well, Todd's going to come now because he has to, and he did. They came hard. And they were coming up the inside and actually passed us once on the inside, and I saw it happening, and I remember choosing not to react to it at that time, because I just thought, I'm skiing hard right now. I need to get my race head on before I push any harder, because I guess I drifted off a bit. Took my head off the game, and But within a half a lap, we sort of, that fired me up well. I was like, this is not going to happen. Like, that's what I was thinking. It could have happened, but anyway, it didn't end up happening. And we went, and Dan and Bakes, gave them the signal, and they just, didn't really give them another signal. They knew what we'd spoken about. So, and we put the pressure, and the next lap we were sort of another half a rope length ahead already, and we kept pulling. And that to me was like, okay. And then the fourth race is when we had trouble, when the ignition, it was the ignition.
It kept coming in and out.
Cutting out. Yeah. So we got almost a half a lap lead by the 30-minute mark of everyone, because the fourth race was like, okay, no, my instructions to the boys were, we're going to win this one. We want to win this one.
Yeah.
And so we just try to, at least, it was like, go out with good intentions, but you never know. We went out there and round and round and round. I was like, and I'm feeling confident and getting stronger as that race went on, because such a good lead. I was like, yeah, I'm going to finish this off well. And next minute, I was like, what are they doing? Shit, what are they doing? And it dropped in the water. I was like, oh, man. And I'm thinking to myself, well, they can't take the world titles off me, but I would really like to win this race.
Yeah.
And then we got going again, and by that stage, I think Todd had hit right up my arse then again, and we went, and we pulled away again, and we stopped the ice. It happened about 3 or 4 times, and we ended up finishing, but we finished well behind Todd. We come in second.
But came in second in that one race, but like you said, had already been crowned world champion, so you sort of dominated early on in the week, and although you would love to have a clean slate, unfortunately, due to both didn't really work out.
Nice to have too. I can't complain. I've had, some people call it luck, but the teams that I've been with for my 3 world titles have been meticulous in their preparation. And I know teams can be meticulous and still have issues and stuff, but I guess I used all my luck up, put it that way.
You were very lucky. I mean, you've run with the best teams in the world. I mean, you finished off in 2013 with Daniel McMahon, 99 Psycho Clowns, another one of the most well-known water ski racing teams in the world, and the late Ian Baker. I mean, you couldn't get a better bloke than him. He's just unbelievable, beautiful family.
Amazing observer, amazing man. Just
100%. Yeah. So, no, really, really special. I mean, Wayne, we've just covered off on the fact that you, my friend, have won 3 world championships in water ski racing, 2 world championships in wakeboarding. I can personally call you the ultimate athlete. You're unbelievable. And I'm sure so many of the listeners would love to know, does Wayne have a mantra? Like, over all your years of winning things, is there a mantra behind your mindset? What do you think? What's the thing that you would share with the listeners?
I've always had mantras skiing, always. It was taught to me before the Worlds in '97. I did have a guy a good family friend that used to come up and used to be very good with mindsets and personal developments and stuff like that. So, and he got me at a very vulnerable and a good stage that I was very open and willing to listen and going somewhere with it. And of all the mantras, and it is the weirdest mantra that you probably ever, and it was just a tune. It was more of a tune in my first Worlds. Obviously, it developed after this, but my mantra of during a race, as I'm racing and going through my mind and the prep and keeping myself in that mind, it was, I am 16 going on 17. And that started, and it was a joke. That was an actual joke between myself and him. But because we formed such a great bond and that trust, it was something that I don't know why, it just kept that would snap me back to whatever. So as funny as that is, I guess it meant something, is what I'm saying.
So for you, it meant something. It got your mind off what was actually happening, and just
it brought my breathing back down. It brought me just not
How
one lap
funny.
at a time
Yeah.
is what, when I'm starting to go, shit, just one lap at a time. Let's just finish this lap.
And it's pretty funny you say that because I didn't expect you to say to me that your mantra was "I am 16 going on 17." Let me tell you, but I do remember feeling pretty privileged and pretty special in 2017, receiving a message from you before the third race telling me, "Chels, all you have to do is lap count, just lap count." So. Very good tip out there to the listeners and the juniors that if Wayne lap counts, we can all lap count. And I remember lap counting, and then sometimes skiing around at Seattle, thinking, "Am I up to lap 17 or 18?" Oh well, you say it's 18. Yeah, so that's cool. It's I guess when you're in different conditions, like wakeboarding, water skiing sends all different conditions, challenges, all of that sort of thing to you. I mean. Is that pretty much you just run with your mantra when you get anxious, no matter what conditions? There's nothing.
Yeah, when you're trying to control that, it's when you're trying to control that fear. When you feel you're starting to lose your mind thought, like when you're going, fuck, well, I've got to slow.
So when the Todd Hay comes up next to you, that's when you sort of kick your mantra in and go, just do what you do, do what you do. It's
when I breathe.
Yep.
I make sure I breathe. I make sure I'm in my own head. I'll take a quick glance. Okay, no worries. Okay, they're getting away. That's okay. I'm okay. Or whatever the case may be, just to stay in it because it's easy. That's when mistakes are made. I mean, every skier would know if most 90% of us would go, okay, let's think back. Why did I fall then? And usually it's
anxious.
I don't know why, but if they thought about their thought pattern or thought about its angst, it's because they're skiing in. I call it fear because you start questioning. This is when all your alarm bells are going off in your head. Going, this is fast. You better be careful. And as soon as you say that to yourself, instead of breathing through it, and even just calling down and regathering and coming back, it can start the downhill slope, and that could be whether your downhill slope might be you ran out of puff or you burnt out but that's usually because that starts.
The anxiousness actually takes the energy out of you.
Yeah, because you stop breathing.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. That's a really good tip, actually, for listeners is just, breathe yourself out of those. If someone challenges you, just breathe and get into your mantra, whatever your mantra may be.
My mantras did develop better after that, I must admit, but I did still use it. I did do a lot of work with Craig Burton in the last Worlds, and he was amazing.
Man, isn't he?
The man is amazing, and Craig taught me a lot about colours and all sorts of stuff.
Animals. Did he do the animals with you?
Absolutely. So and
pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So look, I know water ski racing especially, it really is. It's not just a one-man band. It's a team thing. You've got your team not only in your boat, but I'm talking about your team on your bank, your family support. You've already mentioned your beautiful wife Nat, and now your two pretty cool kids. You've got so many people around you. What would you say is critical to have inside your team to be successful like you have been?
Support, obviously support, and not just support for the water, but support in what you're doing. Having the ability to have, I guess, to be able to put yourself in them training situations during the week. Especially in my situation, I guess, at the time in 2009, I was married with a child. So obviously that brings a new complexity into the whole thing, because it's not just about me. That's the whole, as much as you're doing your title, it's just not about me anymore. It's about having that happy environment at home and making sure everybody's happy and not at their wits' end of, like, you never hear, you know, I need help around the house, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You've got to be aware of it first, I guess, and then you've got to take responsibility for it. So having that, you know, even when you do help, it's still a lot on a family situation.
Definitely. I think it's pretty powerful, and you hear most athletes say that having happiness and a calm environment and the right support crew is a huge part to their success.
You couldn't do it without it. You would lose. You know, I've read a lot of books in my days, and when the best book I've sort of read compared it to, it's the flow. It's a flow. It's a flow of life. If your flow stops and starts, your momentum stops. You know, it's like, you know, and whatever that flow may be, each family's different. You know, everyone's different. Every two people are different. So you've got to find that. You've got to make sure you can communicate and find that, which it's massive.
Find your flow, and I'm assuming, I mean, like you said, you're now married, you've got 2 beautiful children. I'm assuming time management came into it as well, making sure that you were present at home to keep the happy household environment, but also making sure you could get the job done in the background as well.
Yeah. And the last 2 worlds, it was, you know, obviously you have to plan your plan around everyone. That was my main issue. Well, not issue, but that was my main focus. That I wanted to disrupt the household as much as I could, and work in business, because I've run a small construction business for a long time now, and even through my last 2 worlds, it's supported us, and we're still here, which is good. It's a good feeling. But you know, to have, get up at 4:30 or 4:30, go to the gym, home by sort of 6:30ish, you know, when everyone's waking, breakfast, get the breakfast done, do the breakfast thing. And at the time when we did these roles, Matt was working for, like, we were a family business, so Matt was doing the books and all that kind of thing, so it worked well. So that was around the home. I don't think it would have worked any other way. I'm just very lucky that that was our situation at that time, where the kids could be done, looked after, and because, you know, 6:30 came to do breakfast, I'd be gone by 7:30 to work for the day. And then that in the afternoons was probably the hardest, because for Nat, because I'd sort of finish work, come home, get ready, go and get the boat, go to the water, ski, come back, and it was sort of 5:36. You know, where I'd be walking in the door and dinner was ready. You know, that in itself is massive.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, that's exactly what you said. You've got to have that support at home. You've got to have that support in your team. And you've got to be in that happy environment. And, I mean, it sounds like you did everything you could to avoid family life, to avoid putting any burden on family life. But at the end of the day, there are going to be times that you're going to have out on the water, and it still does affect it, but it's a short-term
weekends
pain.
away, weekends away, all that kind of thing, you know. You know, Nat's always home. Like, you know, in the start it was just one. We just had Sonny at home, but, you know, in 2013 there was 2. So the work got doubled. But I mean, I know your wife's a pretty driven individual herself, and she's very into her fitness, and so I'm sure she could understand the mindset of an ultimate athlete like yourself, and so that's pretty lucky to have that special lady behind the scenes supporting you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I liked. You know, look back at it, and without everything that I had, would it have happened? I don't think so. You know, so timing was right, had the right team around me, so it worked.
Yeah, and you've done very well by the sounds of it to manage your time and balance, like 5-time world champion, a husband, a father, and a business owner. Like, that's impressive, and you should be very proud of that, as I'm sure all your support network and family are. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, although business-wise, like, if I had to put more time to business, probably would be doing better. But it's not what I loved.
Exactly. And you know what? We only live once. We've got to balance our work and play, don't we? We can't,
100%.
Can't take life too serious.
I wouldn't change it a thing.
Exactly, and I agree. We're a little bit the same at the moment, as you know. I've got my husband who's pretty keen to keep ticks and goals off, and I'm now the nat. I'm the housewife, so it's all fun and games, and I see exactly what you're saying. But look, I'd love to know the answer to this question, and I reckon I could guess, but I'm going to let you say who would have been your toughest competitor over all your years of, over your whole journey. Who would you say has really, really made it difficult for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I developed in the later years because of Todd. It was that mindset of Todd Haig. Okay, Todd's turn up, and it was funny because Todd was not around, or he was. He was in junior boys when I won my first world title.
Yeah.
So everyone look at all the results, like, oh, there he was. And then all of a sudden you're coming up against all these kids, because I then wasn't a kid, I'm still classed as a kid. I'm still classed as a kid, but I'm not that age anymore. And it was like, where the hell are these dudes coming from?
Yeah. And in saying that, Mick Kelly did say that he has done a few two-up races with you, and people did actually ask Mick who's you're skiing with.
That's exactly right.
Who's that little fella in all your photos with you, Nico?
Yeah.
So I thought it would have been. Sorry, go
Miko would have to be my number one partner. He'll like that.
Miko's going to love that. I'm probably going to get Lumpy to chop that out, to be honest. But no. But look, I could have guessed Todd Haig. We know there's been a pretty cool rivalry on the water between the two.
Yeah,
it's been athletes.
It's been a fun rivalry, and it has. We went through a patch of after the 2009 Worlds where I'm sure it was uncomfortable for Todd to say my name. But in no disrespect, I didn't mean any of that to happen. It just that, like you said, it just happened that way, and I didn't get to choose how it happened, but it happened for whatever reasons it happened, and I guess each team has got its own view on that, and that's how it will be for the rest of the time.
Yeah, and look, I meant in line with the podcast name, you're both just on the rope. You're not steering the boat. No. In a way, you were both innocent in what happened. You were both the guys that had done the hard work and were head to head, and there's not much we can do about that. I mean, if I was the judges and I had my way, I would have given you both a gold medal, but we don't live in a world like that, and to be honest, we don't want to live in a world like that, so it is what it is. But you did go on to race each other for years on after that, so and I'm assuming there's a lot of respect between the two of you now, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. We know it's not a light race when we both turn up. As much as we joke and as much as we do that, like Catalina, for instance, 2016, it was like you go over there, and I knew I had to be ready, for my own safety, because, when you ski, you go hard, you go as hard as you can, and the better prepared you are, the better the safer you are, basically, is my thoughts. And I teamed up with an amazing, probably the most, in my decorated person for ski racing, in my mind, that once I started learning about this guy with Mike Avila and his family and how he approaches the sport, and I know that he's had a big influence on Peter Proctor throughout his life, hence, but I would suggest he himself is the reason why I still ski today and ski race, because I still want to learn from this guy. He's got so much to share, and we're very similar, two very similar people. So it's fun. It's fun to have that person, and that's why we ski race, to make them friends and connections.
100%. Uncle Mike to a lot of the Aussies, isn't he? Mike Avila is definitely an amazing advocate of the sport, especially in the United States. Yeah. I sat in a competitors meeting with him in Vichy last year, and to listen to him talk is pretty cool. He's so passionate. Wonderful man, and
it just rubs off on you.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It actually makes you feel like a kid again.
Yeah, and And I've seen Sonny got on the big jet plane and went over there like a little.
He did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, that was a good adventure for him.
And that's the awesome thing about water ski racing, Wayne, is just the friends that we make around the world. It's so special. It's been a huge part of my life, as you know, and I feel so privileged to have all those people around the world that I know I can jump on a plane and go and stay with. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a special sport, and I guess it's going through a bit of a hard time right now, and but I do think it's a good enough sport that it'll find its way.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're all of us who are passionate about it are trying to get this pod up and running, just to get the word out there, just to make the sport a bit more known to the public and show the passion and how cool it really is. And I mean, talking about friends all around the world is an important part to that. I mean, we're very fortunate, all of us, with the life we've had within the sport, and you just shared that with your Mike Avila story. And even Kim Lumley, we can thank the awesome Kim. She's one of a kind too, love her to death, and we can thank her for getting you back into the sport, which is really cool. But I mean, I want to know, you are the ultimate athlete. I know I keep saying it, but I can't say it enough. And I'd love to know what a day, and I sort of did run through this, so we probably don't need to touch so much on a day in the life of Wayne Mawer, because you touched on that before. But I'd love to know, I guess, one tip to tell all the youngsters out there, or the passionate water ski racers, what is one thing that you would share with them? What's one thing you think it takes to make it happen in water ski racing, or to be an athlete in general, really? I guess the non-negotiables. What is the non-negotiables to success in your mind?
Oh, mate, probably. To me, there's all. That's an awesome question, and I do think for me, if I had to tell someone to start building someone to have the head and the shoulders to be able to, if anyone can get the body and the physique or the physicalness to get there, I believe, but to have the head and the attitude that can keep going back and building, getting stronger, taking losses to get, doing all the shit, all the parts that no one sees. No one sees the tears. No one sees the injuries, and for me, the thing that gets you through that is just be true to your word, to yourself. Like, just if you say something, doesn't matter how slow or how long it takes you, just go and do it. Like, just don't stop.
Yeah, very powerful. And I sort of recently in my pod spoke about the same thing. I sort of said, if you're true to yourself and you're passionate and you love it, then nothing will get in your way, will it? Like, if you don't have your heart in it, then you're probably going to drop out, or you're probably not going to do what it takes. But if you are passionate and love it, you will find success if you really want it.
Yeah, if you set your alarm clock for 4 o'clock, honour it, get up. And just
don't let yourself
resilience. Down. Don't let yourself down. No, because then, that only forms a conflict inside yourself.
That's pretty cool. Set your alarm clock for 4 a.m. and get up and do it. Because the thing is, I always remember early days as well, getting someone telling me, no one's going to do it for you. So if you don't do it yourself, it's not going to happen.
No. And that saying is a whole lot different when you start doing.
I know, yes. I mean, in the words of Craig Burton, and I'm sure you've heard this one, World Championships aren't won in the gym, Chelsea. They're won on the water and in your head.
Yes, Craig.
Well, I hope Craig doesn't listen to this podcast. So, look, I guess just to touch on this just briefly, like diet, did you ever really follow anything like that, or you just ate what you knew was right to fuel you to do what you had to do, or?
No, at the early stages I visit dietitians and stuff, and I try to do it properly. I had no idea about diet, really. And then the more and more I started training and learning and sort of hearing and listening, and the more and more I realised how much it actually meant. And diet still, the dieting thing still evolves today for me. I don't eat like I used to when I was training full on, but it's still, I just try to try to have a little bit of discipline with the food. You always have your binges and Christmas times and Easter times, and that's all good. But 90% of the time, or 80% of the time, I do try to eat
well.
Eat well.
And for those that have seen your smoking hot wife, I think you'd be getting the right food served up on the table as well, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't. It's when I cook, it's like, I'll cook next time.
Yeah, so I guess you're right. There's so many dietary advice out there, but you sort of, like you said, eat well. And I mean, I myself, just bouncing back from pregnancy, have downloaded the MyFitnessPal and sort of trying to manage that sort of eating side of things again as well. And it is, like you said, you just got to eat right. It's nothing, no secret recipe behind that.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do either.
I think you sort of said 80 to 90% of the time, which means you're allowed to have a little bit of crepes or chocolate.
Yeah, it is. It's 100%. Like, I mean, if you're doing the work and everything else, I mean, unless you go vegan or unless you go big, and I've read up about all that kind of thing, and I would have loved to try that. What I know now. I mean, I still love reading and watching videos of different kinds of diets and stuff like that. And, it always intrigues me that there's so much out there. So, you just got to find what works for you, find what gives you the energy and lets you back up every day. And when you're under the pump and when you're injured, you've got to eat, make sure you recover well. Yeah, it's a learning curve.
It's all learning curve, and we're all always learning. I'm a little bit like you, a bit of a book and a podcast junkie, and just take all the advice in. But I think the best thing you've said in that little dietary bit is do what's right for you. And pretty powerful 4 words there, I think, or 5 words.
Yeah.
Do what you think's right for you. That's pretty cool. Now, look, we're getting to the end because I can hear the amazing Cairns wildlife in the background and your beautiful children. So I don't want to keep you all night. And I mean, I'm in freezing cold Melbourne. You've probably got 35 degrees up there, and you're probably sunbaking.
I got a singlet on and sitting here looking on the outside.
I bet you have, and I'm rugged up with beanies and slippers and you name it, I've got it on. So, and look, but what I would love to finish off on, there's so much more to Wayne outside of water sports. You are water sports royalty, and I know you're humble, and I know you'd hate hearing me say this, but you are. You're one of a kind. You're unbelievable. Won 3 world championships in water ski racing, 2 in wakeboarding. You are the man when it comes to water sports. But outside of that, I know you've got an amazing wife. We've spoke about that. We've got your 2 beautiful children. Give us a little bit about life outside of the water sports, like a little bit about your family. And I would love you to finish off with a bit of a fun fact that no one would know about your family and yourself. Pretty cool.
Well, we're pretty, I guess we're just a typical family. Got Sonny, he's 14, he's at high school and going through all that kind of deal. And Jada, she's 9 and she's in year 4 at primary school, so there's a 5-year gap between them guys, it's actually a nice gap, so he gets quite protective of his little sister. But I guess, morning comes, everyone gets ready for school, and Nat does shift work now. She works she's a vet nurse at an emergency centre, so sometimes Nat works through the night. So sometimes we're up getting ready for school. Mum comes home, they get hop in the car, and then Nat will take them to school before she gets to have some sleep for that next day for her next shift. So, we're just a typical traditional family that does whatever it takes to make it happen. We do love we're a very active family, I guess. Whether it's walks on the beach or walking up the trails at Red Arrow or skiing. Like yesterday, we went social skiing up to the dam now that we're allowed again, which was a great day, and that was up there with my sister and her kids, which was really great. And then this morning, I was back up the dam having a barefoot with some of my mates early, like 5 o'clock early, just as sun broke, to get some water, and that took the kids out, ran the dogs at the beach. So, I mean, we don't usually stay home a lot. We're always sort of either or. We're either doing something. And the kids, they're very active kids. So
yeah, living the outdoor life.
We live in the outdoor life, yeah, and because we can. Because I mean, Cairns is one of them climates that you can. It gets a little bit cool. I'm not going to say cold. I won't. I won't embarrass myself saying that to someone who lives in Melbourne. But it does get cool. But it's still nice. We just got to deal with a lot of rain and a lot of water. That's right.
Yeah, and you were just about to say Sonny. Do you have an update on Sonny?
Yeah, Sonny. So he's done Muay Thai for 4 years now, and he's done that pretty heavily. And he's been to Thailand and done a junior world title, and he's passionate about it. If you ask him what he's passionate about, that would be it. Last year he had an accident at the gym, and he broke his nose, got his nose broke, and so that sort of caused him a bit of time out. And I think a little bit of time out helped him because he's always wanted to play football, rugby league football up here. So he had his first season as a footy player last year, and he's given fighting a break, his Muay Thai fighting break for a little bit, but he excelled in his football, and he's really enjoying a team sport because he's never really been involved in a team. Muay Thai is very much like it's very isolated. It's a very individual sport. Like skiing out back by himself. Where a team sport, he really loves it. He's a little people person, so he loves it. He loves his mates and loves hanging out.
Like father, like son.
Yeah, very very close. And Jada, she loves the dancing at the moment. She's right into dancing, and she's very good at it. And she loves animals. She's following Mum's footsteps very closely. She's got a pet budgie, she's got a pet fish, and she's got a pet dog. And she is the best caretaker, phenomenal caretaker that I've ever seen. She dotes over him and makes him breakfast and cleans up the cages. She's just a little worker. So yeah, so I've got two very beautiful kids.
So like mother, like daughter, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, very much so. Yep.
You got a little mini each, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Well, my mini's not that mini anymore. He's nearly as tall as me, so I got to watch what I say because he can fight.
Yeah, but nearly as tall as you know that from the Mick Kelly comment that it probably won't take one American power over you.
Yeah.
Now,
that's all right. I knew it was coming.
Thinking about fun facts, you haven't shared one yet, so I wouldn't mind sharing one with the audience. And you might, I'm sure you've heard this as well.
Oh, not the doggy door.
Not the doggy, the doggy door, you just reminded me.
That was your place.
I know, so let's share two fun facts. The first fun fact is I remember having a drink with your lovely wife, Nat, and we were talking about marriage and weddings, and she showed me a photo, and I said, you got married on a beach. And her response was, yeah, we decided to get married on a beach so I could dig a hole for Wayne so he'd be the same height as me if I stood in the hole. So he dig a hole for me so I could stand in the hole so I was the same height as Wayne.
That's not the funny part. You want to hear the funny part?
Yes, I would love
her mum, Nat's mum, on our wedding day, gave me a plastic bag with 2 phone books in it so I could stand on them as well.
I just remember
So that's
very funny.
Yeah. So that was kind of like, whatever. I'll remember that.
For the audience that don't know your wife, she is probably how much taller? Maybe a foot?
Oh no, not that much. Nearly. Close enough.
Nearly, yeah.
Nearly.
So it's cute. It's awesome, and I just remember it was quite funny. But now that you've raised the doggy door, thank you for doing that. Fred and I were having a pretty good night out with a few of our friends one Southern 80, and we were locked out of my parents' house. Just so the audience know, this was in Echuca. Echuca was one of the biggest ski races of Southern 80, and I think Wayne was actually skiing with the main man Mick Kelly this year. And a group of us decided to go back to my parents' house, but we couldn't get in because the house was locked. So we chose the smallest man in the group, the ultimate water ski racer and wakeboarder himself, Wayne, and we sent Wayne through the doggy door. which was quite amusing for everyone else involved, except for me.
And I was successful.
And you were successful, I will give you that. And the funniest thing is my mum has a pug, so she doesn't even have a big dog. It's a very small dog of yours. So I think your wakeboard is able to get in all different positions, and obviously that worked to get you in the doggy.
And I do remember having a helping hand from Luke Keys. He was pushing pretty hard to get me through that door.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, it ain't easy peasy.
It ain't easy.
Yeah, that's it. It's so funny. Look, Wayne, can't thank you enough. To finish off on that, some of the highlights that I've taken out of this pod with you is that not only are you a 5-time world champion across 2 different water sports, you're a family man, you're a business owner, you're passionate about water ski racing, and just to cap on a few of the things that really sat with me was that you talked heavily about having support at home, support within your own crews, and support everywhere around you. You went on to then sort of go on about how mindset is key. Anyone can get the fitness in the gym and do the skiing, but at the end of the day, not everyone can get that mindset that's required, and you have to work hard for that. And you went on heavily to talk about being true to yourself and work for it. If you set that alarm for 4 a.m., you said you've got to get up. No one else is going to do it, which is so true. And they were sort of my highlights about you, really.
Oh, there's one more probably thing I can say there, that mindset, when you're sort of mindset, the only thing that can help that mindset is to look at the person in the mirror.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, and if you have problems with that, there's your weak point, and it's something you're going to need to do at some stage.
Yeah, very powerful and true.
Yeah, it could be in all different kinds of venues. It could be I need it. Yeah, and it's not necessarily you won't know why you have to take a double take and have a chat to yourself in the mirror or whatever, and be truthful to yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with you. Like I said, I've read a lot of books, and any books about success or about happiness or about just being a human, really, it talks about that the only person that can change things, the only person that can make things happen in your life is yourself. So, very, very true. Look in the mirror and assess where you're at and what you're doing, and that's the only person that can make it happen.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Wayne Mawer, thank you. I have loved being on the road with you. You are the absolute ultimate athlete. I feel privileged to have had this opportunity to do my first podcast with you. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank, I think you said it was Jada, was it a budgie or a...
Budgie.
Yeah,
yes,
the budgie has had lots of involvement in this podcast, which has been pretty cool. There's one more thing you've done, and you've sold me the canned life, so I'm going to get off this podcast now, and I'm going to hit up my husband Jack and see whether he wants to live in 35-degree temperature instead of 50. Yeah. And thanks, mate. I appreciate you taking the time away from your awesome family. It's an absolute privilege, and I cannot wait for listeners to listen to the story of the ultimate athlete in yourself.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Chelsea. Thank you for the interview, and thank you for your time.
This episode of On the Rope was brought to you by Coldies, Bull Bars and Tow Bars, Savage Force and Automation and Robotics Services. It was produced by Boris the Boxer Productions in conjunction with Bisho Media, Mel's Media and Bad Lad Productions.